Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some unique instrument approaches. Now I've been poking around the internet, trying to get some neat ideas as some inspiration for things that would be a little more challenging than a usual fare, and I managed to find a bunch of really unique approaches out there. So our first approach that we're going to take a crack at, and I'll probably do a series of these because some of these are just, you have to see them to believe them, kind of a thing like that, is going to be the VOR TACAN runway 15 into Martin State, which is my home state of Maryland here. So this is an interesting approach. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to be taking the Baltimore DME VOR. Actually, it's a VOR TAC, even better. And what we're going to do is we're going to find this waypoint called SLOAF, Sloaf, which is 14.7 nautical miles away on the 334 radial. And then once we get there, we're going to fly a DME ARC all the way along until we land at the end of the actual runway that we're going to be approaching here. Now, this is a little different. I'm not going to lie. I've flown DME ARCs before, but I don't think I've ever flown a DME ARC that's like this. Now, we have a couple little challenges for us in this particular one, other than the fact it's the most bizarre DME ARC that I think I've ever seen. And that's the fact that we can't actually pick that approach in the flight sim. If we were to actually come in here and press the proc button, you can see I've already got everything all preset, ready to go. We're going to select approach real quick. You'll notice if I press the enter key, we don't have that one as one of our choices, which for me is super duper disappointing because I could just get the GPS to fly that for me. Instead, we have to actually fly this manually, which is actually kind of exciting because very rarely do we get the experience of trying to do these things the old-fashioned way, so to speak. So let's do it manually, which is going to make this flight so much fun for us. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pick our different frequencies here. There's a lot of little puzzles we're going to have to solve here. The first one we need to know is the 115.1. That's going to be our initial frequency for Baltimore, which is going to be doing all the hard work for us as far as our approach goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and study this, 115.1. Go ahead and swap that one over. It looks pretty good. Let's double check to see if we have any other frequencies other than radio, of course, which is something we need to keep an eye on. We have an altitude of 2,600 feet. That's going to be really, really valuable for us. I'll actually get that all dialed in right away so we can start getting established. And what I'm going to try to do is find this 108-degree radial here on this 103 arc. Woohoo! Wow, there's a lot of arcs in this. This is going to be a ton of fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the 108. We're going to take it to Baltimore VOR, and then we're going to take the 334 until we get about 14.7 nautical miles out. Then we're going to hold the 14.7 heading east-ish until we cross each one of these key waypoints. Now, one of the things that makes this super challenging is the fact these waypoints can only be triangulated. They don't physically exist for us in the flight sim that we can go ahead and just grab them, so to speak. We have to actually lock onto these waypoints. And how are we going to do that? Well, that's a part of the fun, and that's why I really, really love these sort of approaches, by the way. So what we're going to do is, you can already see I have Baltimore selected here. It's preloaded in. I'm actually going to load it in over here as well. Whoops, I've done that about a million times here. Let's go ahead and do a 115.1 here as well, 115.10. That looks good to me. And we're going to dial it in here. So here's how this is going to go. This is going to act as our tool to identify the waypoints. This is going to act as our tool to provide us with the distance information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my CDI. I'm going to leave it on VOR. We want that. But what we want to do is we want to turn on some bearings here to make our life a lot simpler. We have the Baltimore bearing, which is going to provide us with the critical information as far as where we are. And then we have the other Baltimore bearing. As you can see, we don't need both of these on account of the fact that that's not critical information. But you'll also notice that we have the ability to kind of give ourselves a rough idea of where we're traveling, and we always have a reference point back to where the actual Baltimore VOR is. Wow! So the unfortunate part for us, and this is kind of sad, but this particular line will not point opposite, which is going to make a lot of work for us. All right, so whoa! This is what happens when you don't watch where you're going. So let's go find that first point. Now, if you remember from our little discussion here, we decided to take the 108 radial, which makes no sense because that's not going to get us to Baltimore VOR. It's going to get us away from Baltimore VOR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my handy dandy course selection knob here, and I'm going to start cranking it over. This is just a classic strategy here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to reach out and find exactly where our particular course is going to be. It's going to be a regular heading. I want this. Oh, I've done that a million times. You have no idea. I've done that in the real G1000 too, which cracks me up too. All right, let's go reach out and find where our lovely friend. There it is. It's right behind us. Figures. Let's go flip on the navigation hold. Our aircraft, of course, is not going to tolerate the navigation hold too much because we're facing in absolutely the wrong direction here. So this is a good time, of course, to practice some quick little hand flying. I'm going to go ahead and tap the controls there, and we're just going to start making our way sort of in the opposite direction. Helps if you kind of arm nav at this point, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. All right, you see we've got about 1,000 feet to go, ripping around this corner nice. I'm actually going to get myself some power. I don't need to be sitting there quite that low. Whoops. And I'm just going to enjoy this a nice gentle turn over in that general direction as we continue our descent down to 2,600 feet. So what we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to zero in Baltimore VOR, hit that point, and then we're going to ride it all the way out to that slope. I love this because, like I said, the G1000 can't help you now. You have to actually do this one by hand, which for me, I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of fun. I did pick the Cirrus 22 today for this. The reason being is the Cirrus is a pretty quick airplane. And when you do these types of approaches, if you need that little bit of a let's go kind of a thing like that, it makes it a lot simpler for us. All right, it's arm nav. The arm nav, it's ready to go. You can see the VOR light is turned on, and you can see we're zeroing in on that VOR. Right now, we're 18 nautical miles to go to Baltimore. If you're asking how I know, it's right down here, which is why the G1000 actually is your friend on these sorts of approaches. I'm going to go get our power. 70% power is going to be plenty for us today. Got to double check my mixture is not set correctly. I had a feeling. And we're going to continue our descent down to 2,600 feet here. Now, Baltimore VOR is listed on our little approach plate. If I actually open the approach plate up again real fast, you'll see that it's chilling right here. We have the slope, and we can see Coombe. Both of these are okay being a Baltimore DME, Baltimore DME, Baltimore DME, Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore. In the general world, they would have vectored you into this position. You wouldn't have had to figure this one out on our own. But I figure, because we're already here, we might as well work it out. So, like I said, I always like a challenge kind of a thing. All right, let's see. So we need to get down to 2,600 feet. We're not getting down to 2,600 feet anytime soon, so I'm going to go ahead and give ourselves a couple whacks of vertical speed here. We don't need a ton of it, and again, this would be completely dependent on what's going on. Let me go zoom out just a tiny bit so you can kind of see what's going on. BWI and Baltimore, obviously, they usually don't appreciate us flying right over the top of their heads, but for this particular example, like I said, we're going to be using that initial position. All right, let's fast forward to the VOR. All right, you can see we're just about there. We got about 3 nautical miles to go, pretty close. Here's a pro tip, by the way. Activate heading hold, please. Don't leave the VOR on and just go. You're going to have issues with that. That also gives us time to preset this. Now, if you remember our approach plate that we saw a few moments ago, let's see here. That one, right there. You'll notice that we have to now go with the 334 radial. You'll probably also notice that's a bit of an oblique for us right now. So we want to give ourselves plenty of lead to be able to kind of take that turn in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select my new course. So remember, we selected 334. I love the fact that you can just read the course right off the display. It makes our lives much, much simpler. And I'm actually going to round the corner a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my heading. I'm going to take about a 45, basically half this distance here. I'm going to go ahead and take a nice gentle turn into it, and I'm going to kind of snipe it is the best way to describe it. So one of the things I can do now is we're starting to kind of square off, and actually you can see BWI passing right underneath us right now, is I'm going to go ahead and flip on the navigational hold mode again, and what's going to happen is as we pass BWI, it's right there. Can't you see it? I can see it. It's clear as day to me. I don't know what you're complaining about. As we cross our little DME here, of course, you're going to see there goes the VOR station. It's now flipping behind us. And what's going to happen is this needle's going to go whoosh, and it's going to snap to the middle. But since we did everything correctly, it's going to lock onto that new position immediately, and it's going to start taking us over to slope. So we're going to enjoy our little flight over to slope. All right, so let's take a look at our next situations here. Wow, who jacked this up? I'm going to have to turn down all this airspace. It's going to be crazy. So what you're going to notice is as we're coming out of BWI here, we're going to start approaching this particular spot, and then we're going to start taking that arc. The nice thing they gave us is if you look really, really carefully, there's actually an airspace line that's almost exactly where our arc needs to be. So as we're taking that turn there, we actually have an easy time of it, and we're not going to have to be stressing on nearly as much trying to keep this perfect because we do have a little bit of a visual representation of it. All right, let's get to slope. All right, we're getting close to the hard part. So now what we're going to be doing is, if you take a look really carefully here, we are heading towards our lucky DME. So the problem we have here is we can no longer fly this by hand. Remember, 14.7 is the magical distance that we're going to need to hold on to. Now, DME arcs are quite a gas to fly if you've never actually tried flying one before. It's different. We're going to actually use the automatic pilot here, and it's going to help us out significantly. And it's going to allow us to be able to fly this a lot tighter than you think so. So we're already in a position where we can immediately start that turn. So I'm actually going to get that heading in. And remember, you only have to be close. You don't have to be perfect when it comes to flying these particular arcs here. So I'm going to go ahead and take our turn. You can see we're hitting slow for now. I'm going to zoom in nice and far so you can actually see very clearly that that 14.7 is so close to where we actually need to be. It's going to make our lives a little bit simpler. So now where this gets interesting, and one of the reasons, again, I love approaches like this. Let me go get this line. Look how easy it is to do. You could actually use the blue line of your heading indicator to help line you up with it. Like I said, just because we're not flying with the G1000 directly on GPS mode does not mean we can't be successful here. It's just a matter of adapting to the tools, so to speak, here. All right, so now we are currently on this particular approach. Now, this is where it gets tricky. We need to now figure out where our waypoints are going to be as we're flying it. So let's go ahead and grab that real quick. So actually, the CUMBE waypoint is going to be on the same 14.7 DME ARC. Doesn't surprise me. And you're going to notice it's going to be on the 21 radial. Now, when we cross that, we need to start our descent down to our minimums of 920 feet. So you're probably saying, well, how do you know that you hit this one? Well, they told you right here. The radial is 21. So what does that mean for us over in the sim? So let's go ahead over to the sim real quick. You can see here that our current radial is 165. Now, everybody's sitting there going, that number is getting bigger, Chief. Isn't that number supposed to be getting smaller? You would love it to do that. But remember, and this is just one of those kinds of things, just to confuse us to death here, is the fact that this is going to be the radial to Baltimore, not the radial from Baltimore. That unfortunately means we have to do some quick mental gymnastics in order to make sure that we do that all correctly. Fortunately, there's 360 degrees in a circle, which makes it a little bit easier. So let's see, 360, 21. If you did 21 plus, I'll grab my little handy dandy calculator. 21 plus 180 is going to give you a 201, which is awesome because that's actually nice and easy to work with. So you can see right now we're hovering this arc here, and I'm just trying to keep us perpendicular. We're a little wide of our arc, but again, I'm trying to simplify this. And now I'm going to go ahead and get our initial minimum set up here. It's going to be 920 feet. I'm going to get that all pre-armed. Now that I have the luxury of time right now. I won't have time in a few moments here. All right, so what we're looking here is for this arc to go ahead and transfer. Remember, it's 21 degrees plus 180 is going to give us that lovely 201. And DME ARC-wise, we're actually almost perfect. Again, I'm just using my little heading knob, and I give it a little tiny tap every once in a while, and basically we're just trying to stay inside of it. And again, it doesn't take a lot. We can hand fly this, and I love hand flying these, but when I'm explaining, especially with the plane this fast, it's just going to be easier for me to do a little bit of cheat here. And again, every once in a while, you just tap it just a teeny tiny bit in order to kind of keep us going in that arc. So you can see we're at the 182 arc, and the nice thing is if you actually look really carefully here, do you see how this needle is pointing directly to our right wing? That means we're actually holding the arc beautifully because Baltimore is actually that way. So it actually worked really, really well for us. And I'm just going to continue. Keep in mind with wind, that's really rough, and we're getting bounced around a little bit here, but not terribly. Keep in mind in a tough wind, this gets a little bit more exciting, and it's a lot less precise is what I'm going to say here. We're going to continue moving over. Remember, 201 is going to be our magic number here. I wish you could get the reciprocal bearing. That would be wonderful. You can read the current reciprocal bearing actually by looking at it. You look at this needle right here. When this needle here, right where my mouse is pointing at 21 degrees, you'll notice that this needle here will also be pointing at the correct 201 degrees. So whatever floats your boat as far as readability and visibility goes. But like I said, the key thing here is these are going to get complicated. So when we cross the next waypoint, we're going to have to go down to Goves, and that's going to require a descent down to an altitude of 1,800. 1,800 feet. So what I'm actually going to start doing is starting to back off the power. Now, for this particular approach, we're going to be using 600 feet per minute. Now, see my coom already? See it start to come up? Now, what's amazing is you're actually going to see us cross this little waypoint here after we actually hit that particular DME arc, which, like I said, is the most fascinating thing. You'll notice, by the way, we're hitting about 14.8 here, so we're actually almost perfect. You would think I'd fly these every single day of the week sometimes. Again, I've got some help because I'm using the autopilot, and I've got a lot of, you've got a lot of digital goodies here to make this a lot simpler. Holding the 14.8, but that's okay. Keep in mind we got that slant distance problem, but that's not going to bother us too much. All right, so now we have to do a lot of things at once. We're going to have to get ourselves to 120 knots at the same time as we're going to go ahead and start our descent. See the intersection? Watch this. Watch this. 201. Begin descent. Notice the 201 was almost exactly perfect. All right, let's get going down. So I'm at a vertical speed. We're going to be doing a vertical speed here of 600 feet per minute. And I'm just going to monitor my speed to go ahead and continue. Remember, you still have to continue flying the ARC. We haven't actually stopped that part of our journey yet. So our next, of course, is we cruise down. We're going to be looking for something called GOVs. If I go ahead and open this up again, you'll see GOVs here is going to be on the 3-9er radial. So that's going to be our next radial we're going to be looking out for. And again, we've already started a descent. We're trying to hold 120 knots as fast as we can. I don't have enough practice in the Cirrus to get my 120 knots like perfect as far as power setting goes, but I'm going to keep fitzing with it the whole way down. You'll have to forgive me for that. All right, you can see we're just about there. Remember, we'll take the opposite. So you were about to hit 30. When this is 39, which is right where my little mouse finger is right now over here on the left, that's going to tell me that I've hit the correct position for that next waypoint. Now, the great thing, like I said here, is that we've just been riding this heading hold tool. This is exactly how I do it in the real world. Actually, I do the control wheel steering. Because the control wheel steering, you can put it at an angle and let go, and it stays there. So once you kind of get the right arc, you have it. But keep in mind, the real world, too, the wind's usually a lot worse than this. So you have a tough time doing this. Now, you're probably looking at that going, oh, there's our waypoint. That must be where we want to go. Well, unfortunately, that is not our waypoint. We need to cross 39 degrees. Do you notice, by the way, we're about to hit 1,800 feet? A couple moments ago, I was mentioning the fact that 1,800 feet is the limit. So I'm going to actually have to hit the Alt key immediately, and we're going to have to level off because we are not in a position we're ready. Now, if you look at our little map here, look at how close we were to crossing GOVs at the correct altitude. We actually hit that one just a little late. I'm going to enjoy this little speed reduction here because when I go back to 600 feet per minute, we'll be closer to where we need to be in a moment. So there's GOVs. Our next altitude is going to be, let's see here, limit is going to be 1260. So again, you have to do all this as the pilot at the same time. Like I said, it's very, very, very challenging here. All right, there's GOVs in a few seconds. Now imagine what happens when you have to communicate with air traffic control with this. This gets to be very overwhelming very quickly. All right, vertical speed mode on. We're going to get ourselves a vertical speed of 600 feet per minute again. All that lovely speed that I gave up into my few moments ago, which by the way, that's usually not desirable, but because I had to level off, it's not going to hurt us too much here. All right, so we're going to pass over GOVs. We're going to something called ZOVAP, which is next. A ZOVAP is at or above 1,260 feet here. So what I can actually do is come in here and I can customize this a little bit better. There we go. Oop, one more click down. There we go. Perfect. Slowing down a little bit, coming around the corner. You can see, remember, you have to still bring that arc in this entire flight. What I love about ZOVAP is it is just so darn close to where we need to be. And the turbulence is getting a lot worse. Nice. By the way, still can't see out the window. Nothing new there. And of course, our next one after that one is not going to be our GIVME here, which is going to be this one right here. Our next one is actually going to be the runway, and we're going to be going down to 920 feet, and we're going to really cross our fingers that we're actually going to bump into the ground itself. All right, there's ZOVAP coming up on it right now, 1,200 feet. Hey, that was a much better descent that time. Much better. And again, we're continuing this arc downwards. There's GIVME, and now we're going to come down, like I said, to our 920 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and do altitude reduction down to 920. And we're just going to hit that vertical speed button. And we're going to go down again, 600 feet per minute on this plane. Seems to work pretty well. And now we're just, again, remember, holding that DME ARC this entire time, believe it or not. So I'm, again, going to enjoy this. And like I said, these are super fun to fly because we never get to do that. And now, of course, we're going to be paranoid about things like missed approaches. But remember, we cannot descend below our minimum here, which is 920 feet. So if we can't find the runway, I hate to say it, we're actually going to end up going missed here. So I'm looking out the window. We're 900 feet, and there's no runway. So that is game for us. What we have to do now is actually fly on the 68 radial and take us back to Baltimore. But you know how much work this flight was in order to get us out this far? It's not fair that we don't get to land here. So I'm actually going to... hey, there's the runway. Go ahead and cancel it out, and we'll put this thing on the ground. So as you can see, this is a really cool approach. It's unlike anything that I've seen in a long time. We're going to fly this thing. That's what I wanted to do. Nice. That's a Cirrus for you. Yeehaw! Woohoo! Hey, watch this. We call that destruction. Yeah, you didn't see that. Just be careful when you're holding certain controls down and you're recording things that you don't accidentally release those at the wrong time, causing a catastrophic spin to death. But at least we didn't stall it. All right, so now this is just a matter of landing our aircraft. And one of the things I love is if you look at the end of the runway, do you see that flashing red light? It's one of those approaches. So like I said, it's very cool. So hopefully you found this video interesting. That's a really, really cool approach. And now I've flown a couple different approaches over my days, and I never remembered an approach that required that much ridiculous planning on our part in order to check off every single box. Now, we had a couple things in our favor with this particular flight. Obviously, we had the advantage that we could cheat. Of course, we also had the advantage that we had that G1000, which made us very, very organized on this approach. But you notice so much of the work on this flight was all about being able to identify those radials, be able to track that long arc that you saw us fly down on, and still be able to get the plane all the way down to the ground. The other thing, of course, you got to see, too, is the fact that I crashed on approach. But also, as you probably noticed, was that even though we did everything perfect, the approach would not have gotten us on the ground because at the time I was flying it, the minimums were actually too low to go ahead and safely fly. Enjoy.